Please go to Finnegans Wake Notes.net for a full explanation of the text, and please don't forget to hit the like button.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. We're the podcast where we really get into dense texts, try and pull out the most fascinating bits.
Yeah, unpack them a little.
Exactly. And today we're tackling a really, really rich section, pages 75 to 78 of James Joyce's Finnegans Wake. It's chapter 4.
Oh, yeah. This is a deep one, even for the Wake.
It really is. If you've ever, dipped into the Wake, it's not exactly a straightforward read. It's more like this river of language flowing through dreams, through history.
Absolutely. It's an experience.
So our mission today, our deep dive, is to navigate this really intricate landscape of HCE's mind. He seems completely besieged here. We're looking at his dreams, his prayers, which are quite something, and this very strange, very symbolic burial.
And all the while, Joyce is just, playing with language, history, myth.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. He reveals so much about guilt, identity, those big human cycles.
And you mentioned this section is auto-echoic. What does that mean for us trying to read it?
Yeah, auto-echoic. It's constantly calling back to itself, repeating verbal formulas, phrases, sounds. It's full of what critics call clang associations, where sounds just sort of bounce off each other and create connections.
Ah, okay, so echoes and sounds linking ideas.
Exactly. And it really fits the setting, which feels very enclosed, almost watery, submerged. You're diving into this surreal dream world where HCE's personal agony gets mixed up with these huge historical narratives. Every word is potentially like a rabbit hole.
Like a musical score, you said. Themes repeating and changing.
Precisely. Themes get introduced, then they come back, sometimes subtly, sometimes obviously tweaked a little. It pushes things forward, even when it feels like you're just spinning around on a single word or idea.
Okay, let's start unpacking this journey into HCE's mind then. Right away, he's called the lion in our Tiergarten. That's such a powerful image, this caged king. But Tiergarten, what's going on there beyond just sadness?
Well, Tiergarten is classic Joyce, layering meanings. On one level, it's very specific Dublin thing. It points to the Phoenix Park Zoo, lion house there, and apparently it was right next to some tea rooms.
Tea rooms? Really?
Yeah. So you got the king of beasts caged right next to this very public, very ordinary spot, maybe a place for gossip, watching people.
Okay, I see that contrast.
But then Tiergarten is just German for zoo. So you get that linguistic layer, a more formal sense of being caged. And of course, you immediately hear wear and tear.
Oh, yeah. The toll it's taking on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His whole state, his public fall, the guilt inside. It's all in that one word. A once mighty figure now publicly caged, emotionally wrecked, physically kind of wasting away.
Wow. Zoo, tea rooms, wear and tear. All packed in. It really lands the weight of his situation. And then it says, this lion remembers the nenuphars of his Nile. What are nenuphars? Why the Nile?
Nenuphars are water lilies, or Egyptian lotus flowers. So for HCE, stuck in his cage, remembering these beautiful exotic flowers from the Nile, it suggests this distant origin, maybe a lost paradise.
Like a time before things went wrong.
Exactly. A time that was maybe more innocent, more glorious, certainly before whatever he thinks he did. It's a memory of this lush, pure place, completely different from his current reality. Deep nostalgia, yearning for escape.
From grandeur to confinement. And in that state, his dreams are still and solely of those lily-liliths unveiled which had undone him. That line feels absolutely loaded. Liliths unveiled. What should we focus on there?
Oh, it's incredibly intricate. It really gets at his anxieties about women in his past. Lilith itself is this powerful fusion. First, you think of Lilith, right, from Jewish folklore. Adam's first wife, the one who wouldn't submit, sometimes demonic.
Okay, so primordial transgression, maybe a dangerous female power.
Right, challenging the patriarchal setup. But then, almost in the same breath, it sounds like lilies of the field from the Bible, Matthew 6.28, pure innocent flowers. So you get this amazing clash, purity and demonic allure side by side.
That classic Joycean tension, holding opposites together. And unveiled.
Unveiled works on so many levels, too.
Yeah.
It slyly suggests devil, linking back to the demonic Lilith, how HCE sees female temptation. But it also literally means unveiling, like revealing something.
Revealing what?
Specifically, Joyce hints at bare gams. That's old slang for women's legs. So it brings in a sexual context immediately. A loss of innocence, maybe defilement, caused by these unveiled girls, at least in HCE's memory.
And wasn't there another connection? Blavatsky.
Yes. Good point. It also echoes Helena Blavatsky's book, Isis Unveiled, which was all about mystical experience, spiritual insight. So maybe it's also about some kind of revelation of hidden, perhaps occult truths HCE is grappling with.
Wow. So these liliths are temptation, innocence, the demonic, the mystical, and explicitly sexual all at once. And they undone him.
Exactly. It points strongly to some past misdeed, a sexual transgression that's haunting his dreams, central to his suffering. It's this potent mix of sexual guilt, religious fear, mythical archetypes.
It's clear his mind isn't exactly a quiet place. And surrounding this dream, the text mentions watchful treachers at his wake and theirs to stay. Treachers, wake, both sound like they could mean multiple things.
Absolutely. Watchful treachers is a fantastic compression. It blends traitors, so enemies who betrayed him maybe, then teachers, perhaps lingering lessons or judgments, and even creatures, like something primal predatory circling him.
And maybe thirsty, too, like they want something from him.
What could be. And theirs to stay implies they're persistent, inescapable, this relentless watching. And then wake itself is so rich. It could be a funeral vigil, right? Like he's metaphorically dead, being watched over, maybe mocked.
Or it could mean waking up, a moment of realization.
Exactly. Or just stirring from sleep. So he's caught in this in-between space, surrounded by this hostile, scrutinizing presence, both outside and inside his head.
Surrounded by critics, enemies, maybe ghosts of the past, and then the text just explodes into these chaotic multilingual bits, like fragments of sound. Fooey, fooey, chammer missy, zeepy zopy, Larson lads, zinzan, zinzan. What's the effect of all that?
It's deliberate chaos, you know? A jumble designed to disorient you, make you feel HCE's fractured mind. Take fooey, fooey. It's got Dutch meanings. Tip, like a gratuity, but also fi, like telling someone off.
Okay.
But it also sounds like Latin fooey I was, or I'm done for, and Italian fuggi, run away. So in two syllables, you get his public shame, his past, his desire to escape.
And chamber missies, that sounds like music.
It evokes chamber music, yeah. And Joyce actually had an early book called Chamber Music, but it also sounds like shame. And it's close to the Dutch Kammermeisje chambermaid, which was Nora Barnacle's job when Joyce met her. So it brings in this really personal layer of guilt, social anxiety.
Wow, that's Joyce putting himself or his life with Nora right in there. What about the others? Zeepy zoopy Larson lab, zin 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 zin.
Zeepy zoopy is a mix Dutch zieksof, soapsud, so maybe cleanliness or just mess. Greek zo for life, maybe soup. Then it's paired with larcenous lads, thieves, crooks, and even Dutch larzenlaid, a boot drawer. It's this messy, slightly underworld soundscape.
And zin zin zin.
That's the Dutch word zijn, repeated. It means both to be and his. Scholars think its frequency here reflects the watery, submerged setting, maybe HCE's fragmented sense of self, his very being. Collectively, it's Joyce painting HCE's guilt, his anxieties, his fractured self through this noise of history, language, personal echoes, primal sounds. It's like hearing the chaos inside his head.
It really paints that picture of a mind awash in bits and pieces of memory, anxiety, past and future blurring, like he re-glimmed or pre-saw. That sounds like seeing both ways at once.
Yeah, like reviewing the past, but also somehow previewing the future. Or maybe just a memory smoldering, or a quick glance. And then he sees the fields of heat and yields of wheat where corn gold Issit, shamed and shown. That sounds almost like biblical or mythological. Ancient fields.
It is, very much so. And it connects directly to Vico, the philosopher Joyce was obsessed with, his cyclical view of history. Vico thought wheat was the real gold for early Greeks, this simple, basic wealth, not actual gold.
Ah, okay. So HCE seeing this foundational ancient scene of abundance.
Exactly. And Issit is so clever. It asks, is it? But it sounds like Issy, HCE's daughter. So it connects these golden fields to Issy's hair, sometimes called corn silk gold. It even makes her like a guardian of this Rhine gold, maybe hidden underwater. It's this vision of fertility, ancient wealth, but tied up with his personal connection to Issy, who somehow both shamed and shone for him. So it's a foundational myth tangled up with his own guilt and family history. And in this state, with deep-seeing insight, he prays, within his patriarchal shamana, Broadstein above city, and he's on anxious seat. Sounds like a real moment of reckoning.
It is. The patriarchal shaman is a great blend. A shaman is a spiritual figure, right, accessing other realms. But an Anglo-Indian Shamiana is a canopy, like a tent. So he's praying under this grand, maybe flimsy structure of authority and tradition.
And the location, Broadstein above city.
That points to Broadstone in Dublin, the station area. But in Stein also suggests a Viking pillar, an ancient marker. So it grounds his prayer in both modern Dublin and ancient history. And sitting on an anxious seat that's straight from evangelical meetings, where someone wavering in faith will be put to pray, recommit. It shows his deep worry, his spiritual uncertainty, a very public yet very private crisis.
A spiritual crisis played out in public view. And then he's seen as a kingbilly whitehorsed in a Finglass mill. Kingbilly. That's a really loaded historical figure in Ireland, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. King Billy is William III of Orange. His white horse is a huge symbol of Protestant power, the ascendancy. Being in a Finglass mill recalls William staying there after the Battle of the Boyne, but it also makes you think of Milton Sampson blind at the mill with slaves, a powerful figure brought low.
Right, like a king reduced to grinding corn.
Exactly. And there's more. A white horse in a fanlight window was apparently a sign of Protestant loyalty in Dublin, and sometimes Catholics would break the glass. So it's a symbol of division, conflict, vulnerability, all merging with HCE's own sense of downfall.
So his prayer is happening against this backdrop of historical conflict, personal failure, kings and commoners. And the text says it's during that 3.5 hours agony of silence, and he prays ex profundis malorum. That feels incredibly heavy.
It is the 3.5 hours agony of silence that echoes Christ on the cross.
Yeah.
It gives HCC suffering this almost sacrificial weight, like he sees himself as a martyr, maybe delusionally. And I might also nod to Oscar Wilde's time between prison and death, about 3.5 years, another outcast figure.
And ex profundis malorum.
Latin, out of the depths of evil. It's a direct quote, linking straight to Wilde's prison letter, De Profundis. It really hammers home the depth of HCE's despair, his feeling of being trapped in this moral abyss.
So he's crying out from his own prison of guilt and judgment. What's he actually praying for? He prays with unfeigned charity that his word wounder, this enemy figure, might unfold into the first of a distinguished dynasty of his posteriors. Who is this word wounder?
He's quite a character.
Yeah.
Described as an Engels to the teeth, armed to the teeth, sure, but Engels sounds like German angel, so maybe a deceptive angel-faced enemy.
Ah, Two-Face.
Exactly. He's doing Nash of Jerahashi, or gnashing of teeth, like the damned in hell in Hebrew, Nakash snake. This figure goes any old where on his mottled belly, just like the serpent cursed in Genesis. He's called the Rab, the creep on's need. Russian Rab for slave, Irish Rab for hog, plus creep on his knees, servile but sneaky.
And what does this snake-like figure want?
He'd do anything for milk, music, or married mistresses. It's like a tame version of wine, women, and song. And snakes are meant to like milk, music, like snake charmers, maybe even lactating breasts, which pops up elsewhere in Joyce.
So HCCE is praying for this snake-like enemy who wounded him to become the start of his family line. That's twisted.
It's utterly desperate, isn't it? He's praying his antagonist, the one who embodies his fears, will somehow become his legacy, a way to transform the enemy into the future. A really bizarre plea for redemption.
A desperate prayer hoping the enemy becomes the heir. And this leads to HCE's most besetting of ideas, creating a truly criminal stratum, Ham's crib-cracking yeggs. That sounds pretty dark, building on that Bible story of Ham.
It is dark, and it shows HCE's warped logic. The references to Ham seeing Noah naked his backside, in Joyce's telling and being cursed, becoming the ancestor of outcasts, the dark races. Horrible logic used historically to justify slavery. Here, Ham leads crib-cracking eggs, slang for safecrackers, burglars.
So HCCE's big idea is to create a class of criminals.
Oh. His idea is to get rid of desultory delinquency, like random petty crime from all classes, by basically expelling these black-faced Connemara's.
Black-faced Connemara's, what are they?
It's a breed of sheep, but it also means black sheep, right? An outcast, a motif often linked to HCE himself. These are the elder children, not of the fold. Outsiders, heretics, people who don't fit in. By kicking them out, HCE thinks he can purify the city, make everyone obey the Dublin motto.
It's like social cleansing almost, creating order by expulsion.
Exactly, a really distorted, almost totalitarian vision. Expel the undesirables to create this perfect facade. Blackfaced might even hint at minstrel shows, adding another layer about stereotypes and outcasts, though Joyce is just reporting the idea here, not endorsing it.
And the motto for this plan is really unsettling. Sigarius, vindicat urbs terrorum, sicker. What does that mean?
It's pure Joycean subversion and chilling. It's a deliberate mangling of a real Latin motto, securus idicat orbes terrarum. Untroubled, the world judges, celebrating objective judgment. HCE's version, Sigarius vindicat urbes terrorum, means the assassin sets free the cities of terror.
The assassin sets free.
Yeah. And Diacatical mocks the misspelling, but also implies the assassin is correctly a sicker, morally sick. It's this incredibly sinister justification. Violence, expulsion, even assassination are needed for his warped idea of order. The goal is that the obedience of the citizens help the health of the whole.
Which is the Dublin motto, right? But misspelled.
Exactly. Obedientia, civium urbis felicitas, citizens' obedience is city's happiness. But the dropped H's in the health of the whole signal lower-class speech, adding this layer of social commentary onto his corrupt vision of civic purity achieved through exclusion. It really makes you confront the dangerous logic that can hide behind plans for a perfect society.
Right, so from HCE's really dark thoughts about social engineering, the narrative just slams on the brakes. It says, now goad. Let us leave theories there and return to here's here, now here, 'tis goad again. That feels like Joyce just talking directly to us, the readers.
It absolutely does. It's a classic move, breaking the flow, reminding you it's a text. Those phrases, nu goad, all right, and tis goad, it's all right, are Dutch. Their repetition signals this shift back to more concrete things, even if they're still bizarre, after all that internal psychological
It's like a reset button.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pulling us out of HC's head and back into the physical story of his weird burial.
And the first physical thing is the teak coffin, pew glass panel fitted, feats to the east. Why teak? Why glass panels? What's significant here?
Well, teak is super durable, right? Resists weather, bugs, ideal for being outdoors for lasting. So it hints HC's legacy or presence is meant to endure, even in death. Pew glass panel fitted, that refers to a real Dublin glass company, Pew & Company.
Okay, a local detail.
Yeah, but it also makes you think of fairy tales, like the glass coffin from Grimm, or Sleeping Beauty maybe. This idea of being sealed away, but maybe not permanently, like suspended animation.
Ah, so not just dead, but waiting.
Potentially. And feats to the east, that's a strong Christian burial tradition. It signifies hope for resurrection, the belief Christ would return from the east. So it's not just a box, it's loaded with hope, rebirth, narrative, expectation.
A coffin suggesting magical sleep and resurrection, and it turns up pitly-patly near the porpoise. What's a porpoise?
Corpus is another great Joycean wiggle word. It could mean near the purpose or the corpus, the body. Its relevance to HCE's fate. But some critics even connected to the Greek myth of Arion, saved from drowning by a dolphin, a porpoise.
A dolphin? How?
Well, if you think of this glass coffin almost like a message in a bottle and it's about to become sort of submarine-like, maybe the porpoise hints at its watery journey, its role in HCE's transformation underwater, reinforces that fluid, submerged feeling.
A submarine coffin. Okay. So this symbolic vessel needs a resting place. And we hear that conservative public bodies give HCE a protem grave in Moyalta. Protem sounds temporary, right? Despite the effort.
Exactly. Protem is short for pro tempore, for the time being. It's bureaucratic language, committee speak, adds this dry, almost dismissive tone to this big gesture. And Moyalta, that's an ancient plain near Dublin, known as where the first settlers, the Partholonians, died of plague and were buried. A mass grave site.
So a place already soaked in death and ancient history.
Right, and the grave is the best Loughney pattern. Loughney is this huge lake in Northern Ireland. The name means Lake of Healing. Legend says the giant Fionn MacCumhall made it by scooping out earth and throwing it, creating the Isle of Man. So this temporary grave is tied into foundational myths, natural wonders, temporary official arrangements versus deep mythic time.
And the demand for this grave pattern is weirdly described. Among Misonacens as the Isle of Man today, among limnophobes, that sounds completely backwards.
It's a classic Joycean paradox, pure wit. Misonacens means island haters. Limnophobes means lake haters. So the demand for this lake pattern grave is popular among island haters. And it's compared to the Isle of Man, an island being popular among the lake haters.
So people want the thing they should hate.
Kind of makes a weird inverse sense, doesn't it? Maybe lake haters prefer islands to avoid water. Island haters avoid islands.
Yeah.
It just highlights how absurd and contradictory people's fears and desires can be, especially when facing death, gently mocking our arbitrary preferences.
Okay, so a temporary grave in a mythic place, full of paradox. How's the atmosphere described? It's found in a fairly fishy kettle carry. What a phrase!
Fishy kettle carry, great pun, right? It mixes a fine kettle of fish, meaning a mess or an awkward spot, with Dutch carry for curry. So the grave's in a dubious, maybe smelly or awkward situation. It's enriched with ancient woods and dear ducky dee blends, echoing dear dirty Dublin, and using Irish linn for pool or lake suggests ancient, maybe murky waters, earthy, a bit unpleasant, but deeply rooted.
And there's an old knoll and a trout beck. What did these add?
Well, Old Knoll might hint at Oliver Cromwell, Old Knoll, or maybe a character from Ben Jonson, adds historical or literary echoes. A knoll is a hill, a beck is a stream, basic pastoral features, gives it an almost peaceful feel. But then the tone just shifts completely.
How so?
It becomes suddenly sensual, playful, veiny vein of her ogery and a chatty sally with any wilt or walt, who would ongle her as Isaac did to the tickle of his rod. It's this burst of erotic energy right there by the grave.
Whoa, okay. Veiny vein of her ogery, chatty Sally, ungle her, tickle of his rod. That is very suggestive. What's Joyce doing there?
It's incredibly suggestive, yeah, especially after the solemn descriptions. Veiny vein echoes vanity of vanities, maybe fleeting beauty or a quick sexual encounter. Ogery is willow stuff, and chatty Sally could be slang for a dirty woman, or just Sally meaning willow, often linked to sadness. Nature and desire all tangled up.
And wilt or walt?
Eh.
And ongle her.
Wilt or Walt seem like archetypal seducers. Maybe Shakespeare Will or Isaac Walton, the complete angler. To ongle her, it's brilliant. It could mean to ugole, like stare lecherously, or angle, like fish for her, or even finger her, from Latin ungu.
Okay.
And tickle of his rod is a very clear sexual double entendre. Joyce actually linked it in his notes to mutual masturbation with Nora on their first date. So it injects this raw dose of HCE's own sexual guilt and desire right into the landscape of his burial. It's like the earth itself is animated by his obsessions.
That's a shocking contrast to the prayer and confinement earlier. Shows how complex his buried psyche is, and the water itself is described. Brown Peter ripple, may their quilt gild lightly over his somnolent form. How does that image wrap things up?
Brown Peter puns on blue Peter,
Yeah.
the flag for a ship leaving port, but it's also literally the peat staining the water brown. Murky, earthy, a ripple is just a ripple. Quilt gild lightly echoes Shakespeare's Sonnet 33, the sun gilding pale streams, so there's this delicate surface beauty. But somnolutin combines somnolent, sleepy with Latin lutensis, living in med.
So sleepy in the mud.
Pretty much. Murky depths below a rippling surface. It's this image of rest, but in this obscured, earthy, watery embrace. Like HCE is submerged in the very peat-stained waters of Ireland, and his guilt, covered like a quilt, a final, ambiguous rest.
A temporary, sensual, murky rest tied to the land and his past, and then HCE lies his last, by the wrath of bog, like the erst cursed Hun in the bed of his treblo Donar-Vater. This sounds like a specific historical story.
It is a grand mythic comparison. Bog here is actually Serbo-Croatian for God. The main allusion is to Alaric. The Visigoth king Joyce calls him a Hun. Legend says Alaric was buried with all his loot from Rome under the Busento River. They supposedly diverted the river, dug the grave, put the river back, and killed the workers to keep the secret.
Wow. Buried under a river with treasure.
Yeah. Erst cursed Hun, links to German Erst first, and Hunebed, a type of ancient tomb, suggests this ancient, powerful figure cursed to a secret, watery grave.
So HCE is like this ancient king buried secretly with his treasure, whatever that is. And Treblo Donawu? That sounds complicated.
It's a fantastic mix. German, trop loyal. French, très bleu, very blue. English, true blue, loyal again. All fused with Donau, the German for the Danube River, echoing Strauss's Blue Danube Waltz. And you could almost hear Don't Know Who in there, too, fitting HDE's shifting identity. So it's this grand burial, shrouded in loyalty, mystery, music, the flow of history. A deep, secret end, just like HCE would want for his secrets.
Okay, so this isn't just any grave. The text calls it an underground heaven or Moli's paradise, but also, really weirdly, an inversion of a falaferos. That sounds contradictory, both heavenly and maybe obscene.
It is, exactly. Classic Joyce turning things upside down. Underground heaven taps into that idea that Ireland's spiritual realm, its Olympus, is subterranean, a deep sacred space underground. But inversion of a falaferos is really provocative.
Phalos. Penis and lighthouse. Or plow.
Right. So it's this monumental thing, maybe originally meant as a symbol of fertility, prosperity, a guiding light, but now it's flipped upside down and buried.
Yeah.
Anthropologists noted some cultures erected phallic stones for community prosperity. Wait, so HCE's grave is like a perverted monument, a hidden power source, maybe an inverted symbol of his own decaying virility or sexual guilt, buried deep instead of standing proud.
And yet, despite all that mythic weight, its purpose is brought right back down to earth, intended to foster wheat crops and to ginger up tourist trade.
Exactly. And that's where the satire bites. Foster wheat crops connects to John Foster's Corn Law from 1784 about grain imports into Ireland. Real economic history tied to this symbolic monument. And ginger up tourist trade, that colloquial phrase enliven or stimulate, suggests this crass commercial motive. So the underground heaven is both mythic and mundane, sacred site, and maybe a cynical marketing ploy, commercializing even the afterlife.
And who designed this place? Muir-Pearse? That name sounds familiar. And what happened to him? He was obfuscated.
The name's a clear nod to Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, where Oscar Wilde is buried. Links HCE again to literary history, tragedy. But Joyce plays with it. Père Lachaise has French fear, the hunt, anxiety pursuit. And yes, the architect was obfuscated, blinded, or maybe just hidden away, buried out of sight, lest he should petrify such an act.
They're fakes, like make fake stones.
It suggests he was stopped from petrifying, turning things to stone. Supposedly a power of Lough Neagh's water, another copy of this grave. Or maybe stopped from perpetrating the secret burial again, like Elleric's. He was blinded, silenced, so the secret couldn't be copied. Keep HCE's lair unique.
Silence to protect the secret. And the contractors, Messrs. T.A. Burkitt and L.O. Tuahalls, were made invulnerably venerable. That sounds ominous, like a dark joke.
It's pure grim humor from Joyce. How do you make them invulnerable and venerable? By killing them. Ensures their silence, makes them martyrs, silent guardians. And the names they allude to, St. Thomas à Becket and St. Lawrence O'Toole, who were contemporaries, major church and political figures in Anglo-Irish history, creates this O'Toole-Becket motif, linking them to martyrdom, cementing their permanent fatal veneration. Their names become part of the secret history.
So H.E. himself oversees the engineering of his own lair. It's called First in the West, and he's our Mr. Builder, Castle Villainous. That language sounds quite grand, almost heroic, despite everything.
It does elevate him, doesn't it? First in the West is a title used for Osiris, the Egyptian god of the afterlife. Links HCE to divinity, death, rebirth, the sunset. Gives him this ancient cosmic weight. Mr. Builder mixes Ibsen's The Master Builder with German Builder. Pictures. So HCE is a visionary creator building his own story, but maybe dangerously, like Ibsen's hero.
Castle Villainous.
Mixes castle and villa with villainous, and hints at the Arthurian Castle Perilous, a dangerous place run by villains in Western England. So HCE is complex, builder and villain, master of this perilous domain, turning his downfall into something epic, mythic.
And this underground heaven was created how? Openly dammed and blasted by means of a hydromine. Sounds pretty explosive. Modern warfare meets myth.
Definitely explosive. Openly dammed and blasted uses curses and literal terms for closing and opening a waterway. A curse and an excavation. A hydromine suggests a naval mine, blowing up water from underwater. A vivid image for creating this subterranean space. And the system used, Samhain and Beltane, references the Celtic festival Samhain, start of winter, and Beltane, start of summer.
So the destruction is tied to ancient seasonal cycles.
Yeah, suggesting this ritualistic, cyclical nature, creation through destruction. A Viconian echo of perpetual cycles.
And the explosives sound very technical. Exploded from a reinvented TNT bombing post up a hoy of 11 and 30 wing rests, Circiter, military precision mixed with poetry.
It is. TNT, trinitrotoluene, brings in modern destruction. Bombing post, aerial torpedo, military terms, suggests sophisticated, almost contemporary power. 11 and 30 knots to Joyce's number pattern, 1132. Wing rests were actual 19th century ordnance parts. Circiter means about, and maybe the two eyes complete the 1132. A little textual game.
And torpedo.
Suggests Thor's fart. Links the blast to the Norse thunder god. Auton dynamite is Greek for self-powerful, describing the torpedo. The point isn't just the literal mechanics, but the immense, almost divine power and force needed to blast HCE's hidden kingdom into existence.
A self-powered thunderous blast. How was it all wired up?
It involved tins of improved ammonia, that's ammonium nitrate, an explosive lashed to her shield-plated gunnel and fused into tripudicables. Evokes Viking ships, shields on the side, nautical terms, links modern tech to ancient warriors. These cables ran through the Olsen playing down from the conning tower into the ground, battery fuse boxes.
False, like for oars.
Yes, pegs for oars. But Salsal was also Dublin's medieval city hall, blends ancient governance with ship design. A conning tower is from a warship. It's this incredibly complex, almost absurdly detailed setup for his burial. Obsessive planning.
And speaking of complex, the fuse boxes were all differing as clocks from keys since nobody appeared to have the same time of beard. That's a very strange way to measure time.
It's delightful, isn't it? Joyce twisting idioms. Instead of chalk from cheese, it's clocks from keys, like the old keys for winding clocks. And measuring time by beard length, it's comical archaic, highlighting how subjective, how fragmented perception is here. Time itself is fluid, personal, unreliable, like HCE's memory.
And the different time perceptions get even more specific. Some saying by their oar log it was 6 striks to 9, More holding with the Ryan Vogue, it was deigned to fife. That's incredibly dense. What's the main point for us?
You're right, it's dense. But the key is Joyce creating total temporal chaos, cultural clashes. Oorlog is Dutch for war, French for clock, Norse for fate. Sigtrygg's to 9, Sigtrygg's Silkbeard, 11th century Dublin king. Napoleon in Wellington, born 1769, a clock at 8.44. Ryan Vogt, a Dublin bailiff. German Vogt, steward. Irish for the poor queen, Ireland. Jane de Fife, 10 to 5. Shakespeare's Thane of Fife.
Okay, so it's just chaos.
Exactly. Don't worry about catching every single reference. The point is the feeling of chaotic, fragmented reality. Time, perception, all shifting, reflecting HCE's disordered mind, all historical periods colliding, like in a dream.
So as HCE gets closer to this elaborate, chaotic lair, his blather began to fail off him and his rough bark was wholly husky. Sounds like he's falling apart. Physically, and maybe his story too.
He is. Multiple kinds of decline. Blather could be German, blätter, leaves, or just blather, foolish talk, so maybe his voice gets hoarse. Or people stop believing his excuses, and then like a tree hinted by rustbark and later woodman spare, his bark crumbles like he has a disease.
Woodman spare, like the song.
Exactly. Woodman, spare that tree. A plea for preservation, even as HCE himself decays, becomes like an old, crumbling monument.
So a grand lair and HCE fading into it. He then carefully lined the ferro-concrete result with rot-proof bricks and mortar, fast to Faust, and retired beneath the heptarchy of his towerettes. Sounds like a final retreat into a fortress.
Ferro-concrete is reinforced concrete. Strong, modern, ironically robust for a provisional grave. Fast to Faust, maybe face to face, or ditch to ditch like Dante descending to the circles of hell, each marked by a ditch or fosse. His lair becomes this underworld.
And the heptarchy of his towerettes.
References the 7 Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. But more likely, the 7 main towers of the Tower of London. Beauchamp, Byward, Bell, Lion, White, Wardrobe, Bloody. His lair is a fortress, a prison, a monument, an underworld. Ultimate confinement. Self-imposed yet publicly witnessed.
And this retirement encouraged additional useful counsels public with hoofed-off dealings. Sounds like a very bureaucratic, maybe ironic send-off.
Definitely ironic. That Dutch phrase, in Stappen, all hats believed, means all aboard please, or take your seats. Formal but brisk, like they're ushering him away. Hoofed-off dealing is Dutch for main department. Bureaucracy, impersonal. Then there's ladykants to who are out, a pun on litigants. Dutch ledikant, bed to who are for hire. Hints at rented beds, maybe prostitutes, whores, German. All sorts of councils gather, breeders' union, guild of merchants, a whole cross-section of society.
Like a farewell committee giving him the boot?
Pretty much. A grand, bureaucratic, morally murky send-off. Clearing the decks. Good riddance, HCE.
And the final gesture they give him, with funeral pomp, a stone slab with the usual Machpelah address of valediction. A tombstone as a retirement gift.
Exactly. The ultimate dismissal. Forget the gold watch. Here's your tombstone. Stay buried. Machpelah refers to Abraham's family tomb, the cave of Machpelah. Links HCE to this ancient biblical burial. Suggests a definitive end. Valediction is farewell, though maybe should be valediction. A ceremonial expulsion, making sure he stays put.
And the inscription, the false meaning etymology. We have done ours, go helt with you, hear your whippet, overgiven it skidoo. That's pretty blunt, almost cruel.
It's the final nail in the coffin, pun intended. Laced with wordplay. Go helt sounds like to hell with you, sure. But maybe Dutch geheel entirely, or geheel, healed, like getting rid of him, heal society.
Yeah. Perverse
closure. Here, whippet, clearly HCE, the whipped hare or lord, acknowledging his defeat. Overgiven it, Dutch for give up, surrender. And skidoo. Pure 1920s slang. Go away, get out. 23 skidoo, a final humiliating permanent expulsion, public decree, HCE is done.
Okay, but after that definitive skidoo on a tombstone, the narrative promises more stuff. A grand inventory of inhumationary bric-à-brac. This huge list of items, from show coffins to Muir-Pearse and fork and pootsies. It seems to undercut the finality, doesn't it? What's with all this detail?
It absolutely undercuts it. This exhaustive, almost grotesque list shows Joyce's satirical view of death as this commercial, maybe even hedonistic event, preparing HCE for an afterlife that's anything but quiet rest. We don't need every item, but look at show coffins.
Like for display, empty.
Maybe expensive ones for show with the real body and cheap one inside. Very HCE, keeping up appearances. Or goodbye beer chips, puns everywhere. Goodbye, cheap beer. Goodbye, Mr. Cheap Beer. Cheap beer for the funeral. Even echoes a music hall song, go where the booze is cheap. Sacred and profane all mixed up. Funeral is business ops.
So even dead, he's still a publican, a huckster. The truth is flexible. What about things like lacrimal vases or hood doses?
Exactly. His nature persists. Lacrimal vases, those little bottles from Roman tombs supposedly for tears. Performative grief. Hoedendoses mixes German Hoden, testicles, with Dutch Hodendoes, hatbox. A crude sexual pun right there in the funeral goods. Then the food. Up your healthing Rookworst and Muir-Pearse in Vorkenfooders.
Yeah.
That's got Dutch Opers cure health, smoked sausage Rookworst, pig's trotters.
Varkenspooches.
The food and body parts and booze. It's this chaotic jumble. Objects, food, bodily functions, absurd abundance, a continued, almost gluttonous existence, even in anticipated death. The effect of all this inhumationary Bric-à-Brac is to show HCE's death isn't peaceful repose, it's just a continuation of his messy public commercial life.
And all this stuff is for the adornment of his glassstone onofrium. What kind of tomb is that?
Glassstone onofrium sounds like a grand mausoleum, maybe echoing monuments to Gladstone, the Prime Minister, often very ornate. Glassstone suggests glass, maybe a tomb where the body is displayed, like Lenin. Puts HCE on eternal public view, always under scrutiny.
Like living in a glass house.
Exactly. That proverb comes to mind. People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Implies hypocrisy. Maybe Gladstone's, maybe HCE's critics. And this whole setup is meant to let HCE, that round-the-worlder wandelings white, live out all fathomly the Pre-Senile days of his life of opulence, till suffering stage.
So he lives out his old age in comfort, even in death, a kind of perpetual aging. What are these stages Joyce lists?
Well, round-the-worlder wandelings white paints him as this wanderer. Dutch wandling walk, archaic white person, Svengali, echoes all at home's health, but it's a false security in his tomb. The stages come from medical classifications. Pre-Senile, old age, great age, and decrepitude, just declining. Late Lent's last lenience hints at the end of fasting, maybe a grace period. Lente is Dutch for spring, so maybe renewal. But then suffering stage, suffering wailing, his sedator. It's not peace, it's eternal old age, decay, suffering, but never actually ending, reflecting those Viconian cycles.
Not peaceful at all. He's wailing away the whole of the while, hypnos Chilia-Eonian, left lulled between explosion and re-explosion. That sounds violent, cyclical. What's this explosion and re-explosion?
It's a profound image of this ongoing, maybe purgatorial state, very Viconian, wailing away, could be whiling away time, suffering, wailing like a whale or just forging ahead underwater. Hypnos Chilia-Eonian, Greek for sleep for thousands of ages. Immense, timeless slumber, but not static.
And left lulled.
Lulled by Lethe, the river of forgetting in Greek myth. Souls drank from it before reincarnation. So being lulled between explosion and re-explosion suggests this perpetual cycle of conflict, transformation, return. HCE, like history, is constantly destroyed and reborn. Never final rest, just eternal dynamic existence.
And another burst of noise. Donar-Vater. Under thunder.
Yeah.
How do these sounds capture his final state?
Powerful final flourishes. Donar-Vater mixes German Donar-Vater, thunder weather, with Donau, Danube River again, and Donar, Thor, thunder god, thunder, just doubles down on the thunder. Recalls the Greek idea that thunderbolts make mines underground. It's this cosmic thundering punctuation to his eternal explosive sleep. Emphasizes the huge forces at play. From Grosskopf to megapod, head to foot, German Grosskopf, big head. Greek megapodos, large foot. He is embalmed of grand age, rich in death anticipated.
So completely preserved, like a pharaoh, waiting, rich in death anticipated.
Exactly. Total preservation, awaiting a future state. Grand old age, but an age defined by anticipating death. Never quite dead, never quite free of it. Hashtag outro.
Wow. So we've navigated HC's really symbolic deep dive, confinement, guilt, this incredibly peculiar burial. It's been quite a journey through language, history, myth, packed into just a few pages.
Definitely. We've seen how Joyce takes these personal anxieties and blows them up into something universal. Dreams of Lilith, prayers of a fallen king, a temporary grave that becomes this underground heaven blasted into being.
And that crazy list of funeral stuff, the bric-à-brac, it really underscores this life or afterlife that's just anticipating death, meticulously prepared for, but never really final.
Exactly. And that preparation, that embalmed, of grand age, rich in death anticipated, it's not necessarily the end. Joseph Campbell had a great insight on this, really captures HCE's state. He said something like, buried but proliferating, burrowing, propagating. The divine one would worm his way back to the utilitarian surface.
Worm his way back, so even in this anticipated death, he's not gone.
Campbell suggests not. He's just transforming, undergoing that rise after the fall that's built into Joyce's cycles. Secretly getting ready to resurface, maybe in a new form, bringing all his tinware, his ordinary, maybe crude stuff, back to infect the world again.
That's a really powerful image. Resilience, maybe? or just inevitability, that even when we bury things, secrets, the past, uncomfortable truths, they adapt, change, and eventually worm their way back.
Right, they find a way to the surface.
And that brings up a question for you, our listener. In this world overflowing with information, what parts of our own past do we try to bury? Personal things, historical stories, difficult truths? And what bits inevitably worm their way back, demanding we look at them again, maybe in a form we didn't expect?
It's a question that echoes right through the wake, doesn't it? Nothing stays buried forever.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We hope that gave you something fascinating to chew on. Until next time.